A few days ago, I was sitting in my room thinking of an idea for my next video. I leaned in my chair, looked up, and there it was, the ceiling. It was actually this poster from Sigmund Freud. I'm not sure if this poster can go on YouTube. I mean, it is a picture of a naked woman, but at the same time it's not. It's an illusion. Her legs are the man's nose, her bush is actually the man's eyebrows, and her boobs are the man's horns because that man is the devil. I looked at it with actual intrigue in my eyes, probably for a longer time than I should have, and it got me thinking, what is on a man's mind? It's pretty obvious that men are far different from women, in more than one way possible. Men usually have thicker skin, by about 25%. Men have more muscle mass, but women are more resistant to fatigue and are able to recover faster. Women have bigger memory centers. They also typically have lower blood pressure than men. However, males are less sensitive to cold temperatures. And if I had to pick between dying from a heart attack or being able to go outside without a jacket on, you know what I'm choosing. That's all irrelevant though. The main difference between a man and a woman is men have penis, women have vajayjay. But that's also relevant for this video, because at the end of the day, what do penises and vajayjays even do? They just fucking stand there or something. I want to talk about how different our brains work, and how they affect our day-to-day lives. Studies show that men's brains are 10% larger than women's, but that fact has no impact on intelligence. Women, however, tend to have a larger hippocampus and more neural connection density, meaning they are able to process and absorb more emotional and sensory information. Women typically have verbal centers on both sides of their brains, while men's brains typically only have verbal centers in their left hemisphere. As a result, women display a stronger aptitude for social cognition, like empathy and verbal communication. So girls, when you see your boyfriend not saying anything for quite some time, it's not because something's wrong, it's just how their brains work. We obviously have a limit when it comes to words, so we gotta choose them carefully. You have unlimited words, so fuck off. Women also have more white matter, which help to facilitate the exchange of information and communication between different areas of the brain. That means that their brains are very well connected, and it also explains why they're so much better in multitasking compared to us. We men usually provide focus only at a task at hand. Okay, sure, but can they do this? Women have been trying to figure out men and their minds for the whole of eternity. And it's hard. Truth is, men and women are completely different creatures personality-wise. And it's hard to understand someone who functions in a completely different way than you. Imagine a scenario. A couple laying in their bed after a long day. The woman is obviously annoyed, but the man doesn't say anything. She gets more and more annoyed, making it more and more obvious. He still doesn't say anything. At this point, the woman is close to a full-on rage attack on her boyfriend, but still, he stays silent. There are so many thoughts going through that poor woman's head. Does he hate me? Is he cheating on me? Is this it? The apocalypse? It's a whirlpool of emotions and thoughts. What is the man thinking about? Probably The Godfather or something, or LeBron James, or nothing. That is also a possibility. Men are able to just exist. So here's the thing. Women's brains work non-stop, and multiple parts of their brains are connected and communicating, which leads to overthinking and stress, while men's brains are solely focused on one thing at a time, and they are so focused on that thing that it's sometimes hard to notice the real world around us. So now we come to the sole idea of this video. What's on a man's mind? Sigmund Freud obviously thought that the main segment of men's thoughts are women, which isn't incorrect. Large part of our thoughts go to them. It's just basic nature. There was this experiment done at the Ohio State University. These clickers were given to 283 students, and they were supposed to click it every time they thought about sex, food, or sleep. The average man in their study had 19 thoughts about sex a day, while an average woman had 10 thoughts about intercourse. But men also had more thoughts about food and sleep, so it doesn't necessarily mean that men are hornier than women. It just means that they were being more honest. So all in all, not that bad, right? However, there was this one guy. This man thought about sex 388 times. I'm not fucking with you. 388 times. That's thinking of sex every 2 minutes. It could be because the idea of sex got stuck in his head. Like, imagine you're being told to click something every time you thought about sex. It's gonna be hard not to think about it. But still, man, 388 times? So, women are just a part of our daily thoughts. What else do we think about? The Roman Empire? Remember that trend when girls were asking men in their lives, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And apparently, a lot of them thought about the Roman Empire pretty often, which personally I found surprising. Who the fuck randomly thinks of the Roman Empire? Ottoman Empire is where it's at. I could go on and on about men's interests and what they mostly think about, but that would be an excessively long video, and it wouldn't really explain what's on a man's mind. I mean, it would, but not on a deep level, and we're going deep right now. How many times have you heard a woman say something in the lines of this? How are you so calm about this? I wish I was this calm about life. Do you really not care about anything at all? But is that actually true? Are men actually more easygoing and carefree? Well, I wouldn't say that. They just hide it better. Or maybe hiding it isn't the right phrase, they have a harder time showing it. As I previously mentioned, women's brains are wired in a way that they are connected with their emotions, and sometimes they get too emotionally invested in a situation, which then leads to stress and overthinking. And it's quite noticeable. They will also often voice those emotions to maybe let off some steam. Men are also very stressed, but they deal with it differently. We bottle things up, not only because our brains are wired that way, but because we were raised in that fashion. Don't show your emotions, man up, don't be a little bitch. Then I would reply, hey, what you doing, grandma? You don't want to catch these hands. Then I cried violently. Men endure stress in silence, and a lot of times they have a hard time dealing with it. I mean, just look at the suicide rates. Men account for 75 to 80% of deaths by suicide, and I'm sure a lot of them get to a point of calling for help, but they can't force themselves to do so. They think it will make them a lesser man. And a lot of times they stick to the only help they got, themselves. At that point, that's not really helping, like at all. They go on with their lives with a laid-back attitude, trying to suppress everything that's going on in their lives. Everybody's thinking, hey, look at this happy guy, until they are no more. So what is actually on a man's mind? A whole lot of shit. But one shit at a time, because remember, no multitasking. And sure, a lot of men live their lives more carefree than most of the women, myself included. I usually weigh down things I should be stressed about. And like a lot of men, I have the ability to shut myself down in a way. I can stop thinking about all of the problems or obligations I have in my life. I can get lost in my thoughts while looking at a stain in the wall and think, damn, this stain sure looks a lot like Winston Churchill. And that stain could be the only thing I have going on in my life at the moment. I don't really care about anything else. That's why women are often dumbfounded by our ability to not care. Or better said, the illusion that we don't care. Because we do care, but just not at this very moment. We could seem like people who have no worries, which simply isn't true. Eventually that stress comes rolling back. It's inevitable, and we have to deal with it. That's the case with every single human being on planet Earth. We all have individual problems that make our lives harder. The only people that don't are either psychopaths or dead, so pick your poison. Dibs on the psychopath. So yeah, men's minds are very interesting. Our minds make us function in ways that sometimes don't make sense to the opposite sex. We think different, we usually like different things, and we deal with life in different ways. Which is great, it brings balance. I will have a girl that will send me a nice good morning message, but I also have my buddies that will send a voice note of them making weird sounds in 3 in the morning. It's fucking awesome, I wouldn't want it any other way. So, after all this science and life talk, for the last time, what's on a man's mind? Women and the Roman Empire mostly. Just kidding, it's the Ottoman Empire.